There's an all-new Thar in town, and it carries forward the legacy of the first generation Thar so far ahead. It gives you the freedom to do so much more and to do it more stylishly than ever before. However, my story isn't just about how good the Thar is off-road. I will come to that in a bit. But this all-new Thar is far more versatile than that. Now, this new Thar gets the petrol engine. That's the first time Mahindra has used the mStallion 2-litre turbocharged petrol in one of their SUVs. And it's mated to an automatic transmission. And of course, I've also got the convertible soft top. So, just how good is the Thar? Let me tell you more about it. So undoubtedly the Thar is a very impressive looking SUV, but it's not just the exterior styling that has caught everyone's eyes. People who are walking into the showrooms are also attracted by this interior. It's a fantastic layout. It's a very nicely done interior. I quite like the quality of materials used. I like the fit and finish most of all. This is built to last. And keep in mind, all of these interiors are also waterproof, so you can take a hose and wash it down. It never gets dirty, and the only time that would happen is if you took this convertible roof off and went mud plugging somewhere in some slush or dune bashing somewhere in the deserts of Rajasthan. But yeah, like I said, it's very easy to clean all of this off. Some of the design elements have been very thoughtfully executed also, and I do like the way this entire sound system, this touchscreen, has been encased in a waterproof casing. I like the way the tactility of the buttons and the dials. Not a lot of the functions are still electronic. There are still a lot of mechanical functions involved, and I do like having to reach out for certain buttons, knowing what I'm accessing or controlling without having to take my eyes off the road and get onto a touch screen to see what is happening there. So in that sense, the Mahindra Thar still is a little bit of an old school SUV, but continues to retain some nice solid elements in it. Mahindra is offering the Thar in two engine variants, as a petrol and a diesel. The diesel I will come to later once I drive it, but what I've got right now, as I mentioned earlier, is the 2-litre mStallion 150. Now this engine is an all-new engine. It comes from the family of TGDI engines that Mahindra has developed and introduced earlier this year at the Auto Expo. Now there are various states of tune for this engine, but this Thar gets the 2-litre spec, and that makes about 150 PS. It's still not at its full 190 PS plus engine output. It makes about 150 PS, but it's got an enormous 300 Newton meters of torque, which is more than enough for almost any task. Now this engine is a brilliant performer. It's smooth, it's quiet, it's very refined. I'm completely amazed at the refinement levels in this. Were it not for the soft top, and if I had the hardtop version, you just wouldn't be able to hear the engine inside this cabin. That's also how good the sound deadening on the Thar is. This petrol engine is mated to a 6-speed torque converter that's been developed by Aisin. That is also a fantastic gearbox. However, it has got a bit of a lag. When it's upshifting, you feel it suck in that power and then release it. So it sucks and then releases, sucks and then releases every time it upshifts. It's not much of a problem. It's still quite seamless otherwise, and it's quick. On our test runs, the Mahindra Thar did 10.7 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour, which is a blast. I never expected the Thar to be that quick. But on the flip side, what you get is low fuel efficiency. In the city, we managed a maximum of about 8.2 kilometers per litre, stretching it out to about 12.5 on the highway, which isn't very impressive for this SUV, but then I understand how that happens. Of course, you've got the automatic transmission, and that saps some of the power, so of course it requires a lot more fuel to do its job. And then the Thar, the LX variant that I'm driving, all of the LX variants come with 18-inch wheels and tires, and these are fairly large profile tires, 80 profile tires, which is all-terrain tires, and they offer a lot of resistance. So moving those tires over tarmac takes a lot of effort, a lot of work, and that is another principal cause why the fuel efficiency drops down considerably. The Thar is built on an all-new chassis. Now this is a body-on-frame chassis, or what is also known as a ladder frame chassis, and It's ideally what you need for good off-roading abilities. But Mahindra's focus was not purely on making this the best off-roader or the most affordable and best off-roader there is around, but also to give it the dynamics, comfort and luxury you'd want while driving it on the road, because that's where you're going to be spending a lot of your time. So in order to do that, Mahindra has given it independent front suspension and a multi-link at the rear. Now keep in mind, both of these suspension setups are fairly expensive, and that raises the price for the Thar. That's why the Thar is as expensive as it is. In addition to, of course, a lot of other 4x4 systems, which again raise the price. But talking about the suspension, the ride quality is brilliant. It's fantastic. It's quite appealing. However, with this suspension setup, what you get is fantastic dynamics. I'm quite surprised at the way the Mahindra Thar handles around in corners. It feels stable, it feels confident. The steering, it's a hydraulic unit, but still it's extremely precise. It's light when you want it to be light in urban conditions. It weighs up nicely when you're out on the highways. That precision is remarkable, and that gives it great dynamics. Where ride quality, however, is concerned, I don't like the low speed jitteriness that it has. Now, there's a little bit of bounce, a little bit of yaw in pitch as well, and it can get a bit disconcerting, especially if you're doing long journeys. Otherwise though, the Mahindra Thar will iron out everything you throw at it. Bad roads, good roads, it just rolls over them comfortably with a lot of confidence. And that is a fantastic thing to see. The one biggest area of criticism that Mahindra has received in the past is for the braking quality on almost all of their SUVs. And I've experienced this firsthand, and it's not the best. Where you step on the brakes and the rear inevitably tries to overtake the front. On the Thar, however, the modulation is significantly better. It brakes in a straight line, there is no fuss, and this combination of discs at the front and drums at the rear works extremely well to bring it to a halt. In fact, we did it in just about 40 meters in about 3 seconds, which is impressive for a vehicle that carries so much of momentum at speeds from 100 to 0. So the Thar's on-road manners are fantastic. It feels almost car-like. It's still got the SUV stance. You still sit fairly high up. You are head and shoulders above everything else on the road, except for, of course, the larger, much larger SUVs. But it has a commanding presence. It feels impressive to drive. Everybody wants to take a look at it. But that's on-road. How does the Thar feel off-road? Well, I had a go in it at Mahindra's off-road training center in Igatpuri. And here is what I experienced. So before I take the all-new Thar off-road, here are a few of the stats, the specifications that will come in handy for those of you who want to take this off-road. Let me start off. There are two variants. Of course, there are several variants of the Thar, but the two important characteristics are the lower variants come with 16-inch wheels and tires. The higher variants come with the 18-inch wheels and tires. The one I'm driving right now, this has got 16-inch wheels and tires. This wheel rim, well, this is a steel rim, ideal to be used for off-road conditions. Even if you dent them, you can just bash them back into place. But this is a 16-inch tire on the 16-inch rim. And these are off-road tires. These are hardcore off-road tires. They are MT performance tires. The standard Thar otherwise comes with the 80 performance tires. Seat provides those tires to Mahindra for Thar. And 80s, of course, are good for most terrains. They're just not good enough for hardcore off-roading. You'd want something that has got a knobbier pattern. Now, you've got 41.2 degrees of approach angle. That's again on the 16-inch wheels and tires, and 41.8 degrees of approach angle with the 18-inch wheels and tires. Ground clearance also differs. 219 mm ground clearance for the Thar with the 16 inches and 226 for the Thar with the 18 inches. Another important specification, of course, is the 650 mm wading depth. That means the water level can well reach almost up to the hood of the Thar. And the fenders, you'd still be able to go through water that deep. For, well, even more extreme conditions, you definitely want a snorkel, but Mahindra will offer those accessories as well in addition. Now, front suspension, front suspension is independent, rear has got a multi-link, so the ride quality, ride comfort is fantastic, but it also will, I should assume, do phenomenally well in these off-road conditions. I'm going to try that out in a bit and see what it is capable of. Apart from that, you've also got a brake locking differential, and that effectively, that works very smartly. It's going to help you a lot if you think you're going to go into those extreme conditions. So that's what the new Thar has to offer, but I'm going to get behind the wheel of this SUV and let's actually see what it is capable of doing. This all new Thar is amazing. I'm having the time of my life. There's some off-road bits that we've gone through. The articulation is fantastic. Water wading abilities are brilliant. Overall, it's been a lot of fun. And I think there's a lot more to explore, not just in the Thar, but a lot more regions to explore with the Thar. Now, I'm driving the manual, but let me tell you, I think the automatic is going to be a whole lot of fun because it just adds that comfort level that you would want when you're heading off-road. Less shifting, let the automatic box do everything for you. For those of you who want a lifestyle vehicle, something that complements your lifestyle or at least says a lot about the kind of lifestyle you want to lead, the Thar is a brilliant package. Now, the all-new Thar has got a hydraulic steering, but this version that I'm driving now, not all of it is standard as of yet. It's got the off-road tires, keep that in mind, and yet the steering is incredibly light, and that makes the job of going off-road that much easier. Overall, this package is absolutely brilliant, and I can't tell you just how much I love it, simply because it gives you so much of confidence. It allows you to do things you thought wouldn't be possible. I can definitely see not just me, but several other people who want something that's also good off-road, but can very easily, comfortably be used as a family vehicle on road. It's still a fairly old school SUV in the sense that you've got a manual four-wheel drive selector. You still have a shift stick to shift between two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive and four-wheel drive low modes. None of that electronic selectors like you have on some of the other competitors in this segment, and that is the off-road segment I'm referring to. The ride quality also is very impressive off-road, and that's one of the beautiful things about the Thar. You can go off-road, but at the end of the day, your journey, you won't feel exhausted, and that is a very important criteria when you're heading off-road. The Mahindra Thar has a low ratio transfer case and an extremely low crawl ratio, and what that means is that it allows me to do stuff like this in extreme situations. Don't try this at home, guys. So as you can see, in extremely bad situations where I can't see the road ahead and you need to step out, that crawl ratio will allow the Thar to climb over most obstacles without you being in the vehicle. This thing is a beast, it just goes on and on. I've had a fun day driving the all-new Mahindra Thar at their off-road facility, getting a better understanding of the capabilities of this new Thar, what it can do, and I must say it's a phenomenal SUV. It allows you, rather gives you the freedom to go deep into uncharted territory unlike ever before. Of course, it's also comfortable, it's also luxurious, and best of all, it's got that petrol engine and an automatic transmission for those who don't want the labors of working a manual. But that apart, it is quite an accomplished off-roader. To get rid of the bounciness in the suspension, well, we tried a few hacks, and of course, principally we lowered the air pressure by 10 psi and of course increased the pressure as well by about 5 psi. So recommended air pressure in these tires is 34 psi. We dropped it down to almost 24 psi, but that didn't improve the ride quality significantly. There was a small change. Nonetheless, the ride quality improved significantly when we increased the air pressure in the tires. Don't ask me how that is possible and why that happened, but when we went up to 36 psi, immediately the ride quality got a lot better. The all-new Mahindra Thar is a magnificent effort. It was already an accomplished off-road SUV, but with the new Thar, Mahindra has elevated those abilities to a whole new plane. The concern was how it felt to be driven on the road, and the previous generation Thar wasn't as impressive. Now, however, Mahindra has significantly upped the game. The all-new Thar is just as good on road as it is a whole lot of fun off it. Mahindra could have made a more interesting variant mix. Now, there are three trim levels: the AX, the AX optional and the LX. And the LX are the fully loaded variants. You get everything in it, all the creature comforts, all the off-road systems, and of course there's also the choice of the automatic and the manual transmissions in addition to the petrol and diesel engine. The AX optional, however, could have been better spec'd. What you don't get is a hardtop variant in the lesser variants, and that could be a big miss. A lot of consumers would have preferred to have owned the hardtop version, which makes things a lot more comfortable. Principally, it eradicates the wind noise that you get, irrespective of whether you're driving a convertible rooftop or just the soft top. At speeds of about 70 kilometers an hour, there is a loud booming sound, which only gets louder if you go faster. At about 100 kilometers an hour, you can't hear a thing. You can't receive calls. Even the sound system, well, no longer sounds like it should. Just to give you an example, here is what that sounds like.